Hello and welcome. My name is Graus. I'm the Global Education Director for KidZania, and today I'm joined by a pretty inspirational and esteemed panel to discuss lockdown learnings and what the future has in store for our children. It is, of course, a monumental challenge in itself to prepare children for life ahead, when arguably it has become a future that can't even be imagined yet. Technological advancements, jobs that haven't been invented, and the global pandemic. How do we even begin to contemplate what the future will look like? We know one thing for sure, however: change is here to stay, and developing resilience and emotional intelligence is going to be vital for everybody, including our young people. Children have been living history recently, and it's been important to understand and document their hopes and fears. We need to get to know our children better. KidZania have been running a brilliant time capsule project where children from across the UK have written a letter to their future selves. They also have been inspired to take pen to paper by a number of inspirational grown-ups who have written to their younger selves with reassurance and advice. Two of those join me today, Hero Brown and Serlina Boyd. And I'd also like to welcome Iain Hennessey from Alder Children's Hospital near Liverpool. And I'd like to welcome, a special welcome to the Mayor of KidZania London, Kishan, who also wrote to us. Thanks to everyone for doing that bit. And I'd like to introduce finally KidZania London's Governor and CEO, my friend Rick Fearnett. So, how has lockdown impacted on children's outlooks, learning and development? Clearly, there's been no getting away from the harsh realities of COVID, which have been a source of anxiety and worry for children across the world. At this juncture, however, we need to explore the positives and learnings to truly move forward. It's not all bad news, and there are silver linings. And I think there's even a few smiles, really, when we look back. So, Kishan, are you there? Lord Mayor, Sadiq Khan's colleague. Cool. Hi. Kishan, can I please ask you, let's just start with this one. What made you smile during lockdown?
The haircuts. So when our hair got too long, my mum decided to cut mine, my brother and my dad's hair. We were absolutely terrified to let her do it, as we were worried what we'd look like, but she did a good job. But some of my friends, when they came to school, they looked hilarious. Yeah.
There are, maybe we should, as part of the time capsule project, we should have had people sending in their haircuts. I looked like my dog, really, for quite a while, until my 14-year-old daughter cut my hair and did brilliantly, but I discovered that she was much more expensive than my normal barber. In fact, I think I'm still paying for that one. So you have to send me a picture of your hair pre-haircut, if you would, please, at some point. The importance of children's well-being and mental health, the education divide, connectivity for all, and equality are just some of the issues that have come to light. Very important issues that probably existed already, or that did exist already, but COVID-19 is like a torch. It shines lights in dark places. Serlina, you're with us. First of all, hi. Please tell us in 30 seconds who you are and what you do. And then please, could you give us your observations about what's happened and what we've encountered?
So I'm Serlina Boyd. I'm the founder of a new magazine that's been going for about 3 months called Cocoa Girl, and we've just brought out Cocoa Boy. So it's been an incredible experience doing these publications. But just talking about the point you've raised, what I've observed, because I have a 6-year-old, and she was very worried during lockdown about getting the virus. And I really had to be honest with her and talk about what the virus was. But also one of the things that we have in our house, we have a poster that says 99% of the things we worry about never happen. And so she was really worried about this virus, but I wanted to, you know, just positively say that, you know, just basically affirm her and say that you may never get it, and just really get her to focus on the positives around her, that she was healthy and that we were maintaining healthy diets at home as well. So yeah, we basically switched off the negative things, some things in the media, and we really focused on the positives.
Thank you. I think that's incredibly important, because, and we now turn the news off after a bit, because I think it just goes on, and I think social media has more than played its part in this. And I look at my 14-year-old and I think, firstly, I think her school did a brilliant job. And I think schools never, ever got the credit, because they're never closed. They were always there. And I think it's been absolutely amazing. And, you know, Barcelona Football Club has got that motto, more than a club. Well, there's many a school that was more than a school. But I also look at my girl and I kind of think, she's much more independent than she was now, than she was before. She's much more organized. She's incredibly organized. When she goes to school now, she's got everything in her bag that was unheard of 6 months ago, you know?
Yeah.
So I think, like you, I think the positives need to be accentuated, really, really, really should be. We're also joined by Hero. We are, aren't we? You there?
I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah, you are here. First of all, Hero, tell us who you are, what you do, and what are your views on the positives and the negatives of the last 6-7 months.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Hero. I'm the editor and editor-in-chief and founder of Muddy Stilettos, which is the urban guide to the countryside. It's a guide across 25 counties for women outside London, who want to make the very best of where they live, and that kind of encompasses all kinds of things, from, you know, anything from fashion to eating out when we could eat out, and schools, the best schools for kids, a lot of parenting. So kind of a lifestyle guide, but, you know, very much focused on where you live, and certainly outside London. And yeah, I think it was that the whole lockdown, it was a real mixed bag, wasn't it? I think there were some real positives. Kishan, I actually cut my daughter's hair. The fact, it was the first time I've ever cut any of my children's hair, and my daughter let me lop off about 12 inches of her hair. She was absolutely terrified, and actually she said it was the best haircut she'd ever had. So, but then my youngest son wouldn't let me near his. So that, I think there were those positives of just, yeah, doing things a bit differently, having a little bit of fun. It didn't matter if your son dyed his hair pink for a while, did it? And we all cooked a lot more. We obviously spent more time as a family. We went walking a lot more. I think one of the really big things that's come out of COVID for my family actually has been about being a lot healthier. Packed on a couple of midlife pounds. Thought that maybe it's not such a good idea in COVID, and the kids are kind of been encouraging us. So that sort of thing was really good. And I think actually really nice for the children not to be told off about technology for once. You know, it kind of ended up being their friend, didn't it? Yeah. And yeah, to just allow them to kind of connect with their friends and realise that it's not the devil, it's just the way that you have to use it is the important thing. And maybe the negative for me, I think just seeing, you know, no doubt about it, even as an 11-year-old as sunny as my son, very, very happy kid, very happy-go-lucky, lots and lots of friends. He really struggled by, I think, about month 4, he was really getting depressed by being at home. And I definitely think, I agree with you, Serlina, watching the news, just, you know, being able to understand the enormity of what was going on was actually becoming quite difficult. And in the end, we did what you did, which was kind of limit that side of things a little bit. And I was really thrilled when he went back to school. It was just like, you know, the veil got lifted and he was a different kid again.
Thank you. I think it's really interesting, isn't it, how, you know, futurists some years ago were telling us that we would all be working from home and that we would all be schooled at home. And I think what's quite clear for me after the last couple of months is how much we need other people. Yeah. And how much we need their company and their presence. And I think your point about technology is a really interesting one, because it has shown for me where would we've been without FaceTime and those kind of things. I'd have no idea. But it also brought something home to me, really, and I'm doing some work with BET and a number of other organisations around this. It is very clear that the inequalities are more noticeable and are growing. And you know what? If you haven't got internet access at home because your parents can't afford it, then you are left out. You are left out of learning, you're left out of schooling, and you are left out of contacting your friends. And we literally are thinking about, there should be a campaign to make internet access a human right, like access to water. And my good friend Rick, the governor, and I talk and have done for years about level playing fields and how we should strive to afford that for all children who come to KidZania, wherever that KidZania might be. And Rick, do you want to say something about level playing fields and creating them?
I mean, of course, it's hugely important, and you've just emphasised there the fact that there is a bigger divide now, especially with technology. If you went back to when there was a crisis with the Spanish flu about 100 years ago, they didn't have those kind of capabilities. At least now we have an opportunity to be able to keep communicating, but that's only for a percentage of around the world. It's not for everybody. So it's really important as we move forward that we do have some form of level playing field. And I know at KidZania London specifically, but KidZania globally, we always aim to complement the academia learning that's done in schools with the learning of the moralistic soft skills that are learned at home and with other social environments. And we always work very, very hard to try and offer activities that include everybody. They always include all aptitudes, all abilities, all different cultures. And we try to do always in a fun and exciting way so that they can learn through role play and experimenting themselves.
Yes, I totally agree. And we will do more because we should, because this is about our involvement in doing the right thing. Iain Hennessey, Alder Children's Hospital. I follow Alder Children's Hospital on Twitter and obviously follow Iain on LinkedIn, and I'm kind of, I'm in awe. And what I'm in awe about is not just that the doctors and nurses and do what they do and are brilliant, but the word innovation must feature in Alder Hayes' tweets and in Iain's comments on LinkedIn more than any other word, I think. So Iain, I'd really welcome your insights on the last hard 7 months.
Yeah, it's been some journey really over the past 7 months. There's been so many positives though that have come out of it. There are things which people said, oh, that's impossible. Literally 1 month before COVID kicked off, they said, oh, we can't do all of our clinics by telemedicine. That's impossible. We always have to have face-to-face contact. And then 2 months later, 95% of our clinics all done by telemedicine, and it's better. That's the thing, which is like not only is it different, but it's different and better. So you have, how to put it, people who used to have to take an entire day of work, used to have to take their child out of school. They used to have to take the child's brothers and sisters out of school to come and see you for 5 minutes for you just to check something very quickly. And now I get to just have the pleasure of doing that from my house. I can do a telemedicine clinic. I can see the child in their home, which actually gives me a huge amount of information as well. You see the interaction going on there. You've not disturbed their day. They're much more relaxed because they're in their own safe space. And everyone's just much more chilled out. And I think that it's, we wouldn't have had that if we hadn't have had this sudden wake up call of like, right, okay, you got to do things differently now. So that's, obviously there's been huge amounts of negatives that have come from this, but the shake up to how we deliver healthcare and how we put the patient and the family at the center of healthcare actually has changed it in many ways for the better during this.
Actually, Iain, can I just throw another one in for you, please? Talk to me about innovation, because you are, you hear about social entrepreneurs and you hear about entrepreneurs. You are kind of medical entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we've got to do. The innovation has lots of different definitions, but the definition I like is recombinant innovation, where you take an idea from here and you take an idea from there and you smush them together and come up with something completely different. It's like putting, you know, wheels on luggage, that type of thing. It's where, and then you've got to try and make the best of it. You go, right, okay, we've got a new idea here. What do we do with it? How can we actually take this to the next level? How can we make a real impact with it, and then do it quickly and do it in a kind of frugal sort of way, you know, in a kind of startup sort of mentality. So innovation for me is that's how I tend to define it, and it is so critical in every field. But I think healthcare is really important, so we should be coming up with new ideas. So,
just one more brief one on that, because I think it's really important. Innovation isn't a subject at school. So what happens to Iain Hennessey and his team to become innovators, entrepreneurs, for want of a better way of putting it?
Yeah, so I think the reason that innovation tends to be quite fertile in children's hospitals is because the people that work in children's hospitals are often just big kids themselves, and we're open to being silly and making mistakes and trying stuff. And I think, unfortunately, in education, that often gets beaten out of you. You know, you got to get it right. You can't make mistakes. And innovation is about making mistakes. And I make mistakes all the time. I've got lists of inventions. I've got books of inventions, which are all rubbish. But that's the only way to have a good invention, is to have lots and lots of bad ones. I think that children are much more okay with that. And I find it very sad that so much of education seems to be almost getting them out of that mindset. And some of the lessons I remember most from being a kid were around when we got let off the leash and we got just to make something. I remember one thing we had to do was that it was primary 5 in Scotland. That's like year 5 sort of thing, and we had to make a thing which could carry a weight out of paper and paper clips and elastic bands and the rest of it, and whoever could carry the most weight won. I loved that. You know, that was, you know, we should have been doing more of that. Is my view.
It's interesting. Yeah, experiences get you there. Experiences everything, I think, and to have those, and children's hospitals and KidZanias, basically, we play alike. But it's quite cool. I love that. Thanks. Okay, preparing children for the future. What does the future world of working hold? Children have recently returned to school, but many of them don't know what job it is they will eventually find and settle into later. They don't know whether the job they're going to do exists yet. And we're also being told, incidentally, that all jobs will be new, and that everything will be artificial and intelligent. Well, I happen to disagree with that, because I think we will always be people, and so we mustn't be scared of this, I would say. But a recent report published by Dell Technologies, authored by the Institute for the Future, I don't know how you get appointed to that, and a panel of 20 tech, business and academic experts from around the world, 85% of the jobs that will exist in 2030 apparently haven't been invented yet. Clearly, crystal ball gazing has. What we do know is that rapid technological change is changing the skill requirements for jobs. Rick, please, your views on, in a rapidly changing API economy, it is predicated that the type of jobs in 12 years' time will be neuromanager, robot monitors, ethical hackers, blockchain, crypto specialists, digital detox therapists, cultured meat farmers, urban shepherds, microbial balancers, and autonomous vehicle designers. And I got all of that out without stumbling over it once. Rick, how do we begin to prepare our children for these?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure I understand any of those jobs, Gur, but many of these roles, they're going to require individuals to learn as they go. Yeah. And without these emerging fields, they're going to require a lot of pre-training, and they're going to adopt a different mindset. They're going to have to, it's going to be crucial. It's going to be, you're going to have to be resilient to overcome the new challenges that are coming ahead of us. And they'll probably need to be part kind of junior economist, part application program interface developer, part data geek, and at the end of it, probably an auditor as well. So there's a lot of changes that they will need to get their heads around. And a lot of this is by doing. They'll have to learn it kind of themselves.
I agree, and learning by experience. And I think we get kind of sometimes hung up into schools should do this rather than experience should do this. And we mustn't forget that it's only 11 years since the launch of the iPhone, for example, and look how that changed the world. And we still don't teach iPhone at school, but we are more skills focused now. I'm interested to ask the cool youngster amongst us. Sorry, Rick. To ask the cool youngster amongst us, Kishan, had you heard of any of these jobs?
No, I haven't. Well, they sound interesting. We could try them out at KidZania.
I think once we've worked out what they are, I probably agree with you. But I feel mightily reassured that even you haven't heard of any of those. It makes me feel, as the oldie here, it makes me feel much better. But we will put them on the list, and when the time is right, we'll talk to Rick as to whether we can have some of those at least in KidZania. Hero, you started your career in print media and have since become a digital entrepreneur with the hugely successful Muddy Stilettos platform. I love that name. Did you find you had to adapt and grow your skill set at the same pace as emerging technology?
Well, I think when I started, Muddy Stilettos started off back in the day as a blog. So it was just a free WordPress site that I used. And I remember I'd moved out of London, out of print media, as you say, and I thought, I'm going to start this blog in Buckinghamshire. And I remember for about the first 2 years trying to explain to people out here that what I was trying to do, and that because it hadn't really sort of come from London. So I had this very simple WordPress site for a while, but as I started to, I was learning on the job, really. I think that's what you're saying. You don't have to have all of the skills. I think what you have to have is a lot of curiosity and drive and maybe belief. I had a real belief that I had a great idea, and I was so excited about it. I couldn't stop doing it. I would just do it for free. I just love it. But so the more I did it, the more I was obviously learning, and yeah, you just pick up stuff all the time. And so I think I've been doing Muddy Stilettos 9 years, and I've gone through 4 whole redesigns of the site, and now it's sort of mobile optimized, and everything's changed. GDPR, all that kind of stuff came in. You've got to learn how to do that, and podcasting and all of these things, and they're not always successful. And I really liked what you were saying actually, Iain, about failing. The whole, to innovate, you've got to fail. And I've done plenty of failures as well over my time. But that's all part of the curiosity, isn't it? So, yeah, I've kind of tried to keep pace, and it's really important to, it's a very tough industry to be in, digital media. And so, yeah, I think I have kind of kept pace with it, but it's also just about constantly trying to innovate. So we're bringing out new products all the time. Like on Monday, I'm bringing out a new staycation guide called Weekend Escape, so it's all about staycationing. And then the month after that, we're launching our own Muddy Stilettos school awards, and and on it goes, and it's just constantly, and each of those things requires the technology to go around it. So so you come at, I think you start with the creativity and the idea, and then you work out how to do it.
Yeah, I thank you. I think it's really important, isn't it, this fail thing, fail once and then the next time fail better, really, because, and I see this at KidZania when I talk to the youngsters, and this is where we have a real problem with schooling. As Iain also hinted, you can't fail at school because it's a bad thing, and you can't fail in the test. And sometimes when I talk to the youngsters at KidZania, that mindset permeates into their everyday life. Like they think it's wrong to dislike a certain activity. And I congratulated one young man on not liking an activity and said, you've obviously given it some real thought. Brilliant. And I think we need to, in that sense, start to distinguish between schooling and education and the roles, I think, that we all play in that, including us and everybody, I think. Iain, if I can come back to you, please. Do you think we'll still need surgeons and doctors in years to come?
Yeah. I mean, they'll be different though. So the concept that's, for instance, there was like a robot's going to take over from a surgeon. That type of thing is not going to happen in the immediate term, unless there's some really incredible change in technology. But we will be augmented by them. We will be working with them, and we need to have that skill set. And there's a really nice quote that someone sent to me the other day that was saying that AI won't replace doctors, but doctors that use AI will replace those that don't. So it's about how do you view it as a tool and work with it as a tool and change the way that you practice medicine. I mean, if I could go back 100 years and show a doctor from 100 years ago what I can do now, it would be beyond incredible. I mean, because antibiotics weren't even invented 100 years ago. I remember speaking to this really old lady once on a train when I was a junior doctor. She had this like old bag on her that had Sterling Medical Association. So I got chatting to her, and she was like one of the first female doctors. And I asked her, what was the biggest thing that happened to you in your career? And she said antibiotics.
Wow.
And she said that we got this antibiotic stuff and we were just going around the hospital giving people injections of this. And they were just getting cured when they would have died before. She said, we emptied the hospital. We thought we were out of a job. We found other diseases. There'll always be things for doctors to do, I think. But it's, you've got to embrace new technologies, but it won't, I don't think, ever replace us.
What one big innovation do you think we'll see?
What we will see or have seen. So
we will see. So what's the next antibiotics in the next 10 years? Yeah,
so it's how we manipulate data and how we use data to discover new drugs and new therapies, and to detect the mistakes that we're making. I see, unfortunately, doctors make a lot of mistakes, and we need to increase our safety systems, and that's where computers can actually be, AI can actually work really well, and just spotting those typical human mistakes that we make because we're tired or we're frightened, or because there's a certain hole in our knowledge, or we've been distracted. And it's getting the creativity and the in the human element of us, and then trying to take that weak part and supplement it with the technology. That, for me, I think will be one of the biggest things, is how we use that data.
Data. But I think I'd say the same. I'd say the same in my line of work, which is not about saving lives, but in that sense, but it is about making lives better. The better we know our children, the more we can act on that and provide better. Thank you. Serlina, you recently started your brilliant and on the pulse Cocoa Girl and now Cocoa Boy magazines. You started them in lockdown. How do we empower children to follow their instincts, especially when faced with challenges and criticism even?
That's a really good question, and I can only talk from experience with the magazine. So a lot of the children, when mothers write in, a lot of the children that are reading my magazines have been criticised, whether it be at school or, being told that, they're not achieving as they should have. And what we do with our magazine is to educate and affirm. I think it's really important. And also the one thing we do to affirm the children that read our magazines is to show them positive role models. Because if they see, people that have achieved remarkable things, then for them, it shows them that they can do the same, but even better. So I'm very aware of what we put into our magazines. It's important for children to just see, positive images as well. It does a world of good, especially when they're not used to seeing it.
Yes, very good point. Thank you so much. I want to move on to developing skills as well as striving for academic attainment. And Rick, if I may, we think we think that it's going to be just as important to prioritize personal growth as well as academic attainment in preparing children for the future of working. And I can give, I think, in my mind, an example for this. And the example is kind of KidZania connected, because I think KidZania and out of school hours learning like that, I think makes children more confident. And I've always said, give me a confident child and I'll bring you the grade. And so I suppose that's the connect. Rick, what are your views on that?
I strongly believe that experience-based learning is going to be a key. It's going to be a strong key. And we've got to help develop a lot of the soft skills, the new world skills that include things like communication, collaboration, creativity, reflection, possible leadership and problem solving, empathy, entrepreneurial spirit, as we mentioned already. And I think these are all going to be the keys to equip our children for the future.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Hero, do you think that schools do enough to develop these types of skills, as well as encouraging children to discover their own individual passions and talents?
Gosh, that's a really big question to answer, isn't it? Because the schools are so varied. I mean, I go and review a lot of schools. They're independent schools generally that I go into, and I have noticed a massive shift in the last 5 years, I'd say. Certainly the last 2 or 3, where suddenly, you know, the children are kind of doing yoga, they do meditation. You know, there's a lot of talk of, you know, mental health counsellors, and you know, my children who are all in the state system, I'm getting that feedback from them. You know, I hear from my you know, my 11-year-old, you know, he's you know, they're all very woke, and they all know what's going on. They all care about each other's feelings. Sexuality is discussed and accepted, and all of these, you know, it's an interesting phrase, isn't it? Soft skills. They're kind of new skills, aren't they? Or rediscovered skills. They're really actually the most important skills. And I know when I employ people, this stuff is the most important. In fact, the degree or whatever is right down the bottom. I look at the academics last. You know, it's about experience, and it's about, you know, that kind, you know, the feeling and the empathy and all of those skills that allow us to kind of work well together. So I think some schools do it really brilliantly. Other schools probably need to do more, but I would say that as a society, we're clearly going in the right direction, because, you know, we'll all know, won't we, from these sort of 7 months, you know, of lockdown or COVID, that, you know, mental health on the television, talking about anxiety in children, and us all seeing it actually in our own children at home, and understanding how important it is, you know, to kind of equip them to deal with those feelings, and also then, you know, as they go older and out into the workplace, are just so important. Yeah,
I totally agree, and I think it's interesting that they're called soft, because they're called soft because they can't be measured, allegedly, and that kind of connects to Iain's point. I think we need to measure what we value, not value what we can measure. And maybe we need to create our own measures for what are currently known soft skills, i.e., what contribution do they make to the whole picture? You know, confident children get better grades. So what other connectivity is there? I think it's incredibly important. I think schools are getting much better at it. And I also think that schools need to perhaps draw in more expertise from outside, rather than feel that they have to do it all themselves. So they become the manager of the project rather than the doer. And I think that requires a change of mindset, I think, perhaps as well. Serlina, what about emotional intelligence and strong set values?
I would say, well, I'm just talking from working with my daughter, and for me, I've seen her developed over lockdown from somebody that's really shy to somebody that really has a hands-on approach on doing projects, walks around with her notepad now and wants to just get involved in everything. And that's just because of the fact that she's had a more hands-on approach in her learning, you know. So when we did the magazine, I came to her and pitched to her the idea. And she said, I'd love to do it. And I've just seen her go from, as I said, a shy little girl to somebody that now is writing, that is now creating her own books, that is now an art director. She's choosing pictures to go in the magazine. So I've just seen, you know, for somebody just getting involved in her learning, her just change into something else within a few months. So this has just affected her, you know, she's not now focusing on the negativity that's going around her, but she's seeing this time of lockdown as growth. And you know, it's just incredible to see.
I agree entirely, and I think we need to, and we need to find ways of measuring that and evidencing that. I totally agree. It's the same with my daughter here. Iain, I think I know the answer to the next question, but I'll ask it anyway. Will professions such as medicine ever be on board with this kind of thinking?
Yeah, I mean, we've been quite old-fashioned in the past. I think, you know, healthcare definitely seen a lot of behaviours in it that, you know, seem more from the 50s than they do from the current age. But people accept now that you have to change, that you have to have this type of growth mindset, that these soft skills are actually much more important than some of the academic skills, which were previously so valued in medicine. I mean, I train a lot of trainee surgeons and doctors, and the best ones are not the smartest ones, not by a long shot. It's the ones that can actually, you know, make that connection, who have that common sense, who have that ability to plan, who are relentless or stable. They're the ones who really shine. You know, when you come to the finished product, and it's interesting to see how they're selected for at the start, because that's not how they're selected.
Yeah. Kishan, a question for you, if I may. Do you think it's important for children to understand how to work together and how to help one another?
Yeah, I think it is, because lots of jobs you need to do teamwork. Not many jobs you don't need to do teamwork. So also when you do teamwork, you're more successful together than you would be if you did it by yourself. And then you have the group effort. So sometimes someone's good at something, but you may not be good at that. So then you can group your skills to get a better outcome.
Perfect. Have you done any teamwork today?
I did some teamwork at school. I had no idea where I had to go. I had Spanish, I think, but I forgot the room number. So my friend was like, oh, it's this room. And then we used the map because I knew where certain rooms were and he knew where certain rooms were. So we used the map to try and find the room.
Perfect. That's amazing. Yeah. Because teamwork is not just about big things, is it? Teamwork is also about little things that might help us. Yeah, I totally agree. Rick, experience-based learning, you touched on it earlier. What, in your view, are the biggest challenges facing experience-based learning?
I think with challenges, they're always there to overcome, and we have to do that using collaboration and partnership with educationalists. We've got to continue to listen and to take counsel from the teaching profession. And obviously there's huge benefits to children joining up classroom-based learning, and there's lots of opportunities to be able to grow with experiences outside of school.
Yeah, I think this is going to be very challenging. I think we will get there, but there seems to be a little practice developing that online experiences equal real life experiences. And I can tell you now that that's not the case. Some online experiences are amazing, but you can't replace. And I think sometimes also the whole health and safety thing gets in the way, and we need to think more around calculated risk, I think. But you take the experiences away, I think you take, how can you have entrepreneurs if you have no experience to build on and to learn from and to develop from? Iain's point earlier, I think. So yeah, I agree. Here, post-lockdown or lock-up as it felt like here, How important is it that we offer alternative environments for children to learn?
You mean alternative environments outside of the classroom?
Yes.
Like experiential learning, you mean, that kind of?
Yes.
Oh, like so important. I mean, even just thinking about how we're all working from home now, and I can sit for hours in front of this table here, looking at this computer, and it's the things we loved about offices, weren't they? About you'd go there, you'd chat to people, you'd go out for lunch, you'd have to do an interview. The kind of your experiences change, so it just makes things fresh. And of course, it's exactly the same for kids, isn't it? I'm sure, Kishan, if you're sitting in front of your, you're just sitting in your desk all day, you would just go absolutely berserk. So, I mean, one of the really interesting things, like when I go around schools, I absolutely love it when I see, if the kids can climb the trees, or there's markers on the trees. I've been to so many schools. I was brought up in Wales, and I went to an amazing primary school where we had sheep, nibbling the grass the whole time, and we had beekeeping. We made honey. But I've been to, I must have reviewed perhaps 60 schools in Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire, and I've only come across one that had beekeeping. But what an amazing experience for children to learn, and not only just the how the bees work, but we actually then would we made the pottery that then you would have the honey to take home. So I think it's all of that stuff that makes, and I remember it to this very day, so I think that kind of activity is just so crucial to kind of having that joy of learning, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's tangible, isn't it? Tangible learning. The environment is the third teacher. So very true. Iain, we're going to have to work on reassuring parents and schools regarding safe environments, I suppose, because it might now be viewed as a risk to go somewhere. Can we do that?
Yeah, I think we can. I mean, we are, as pandemics go, we have been incredibly lucky in that children have been so minorly affected by this, to almost a freakish degree that they don't seem to be that affected by this virus. And that's, for me, an absolute, godsend. Looking at our hospital, we've had to make our hospital as safe as possible for not just the patients, but also for the staff and for the visitors and for the families. And the thing is, when you put an awful lot of effort into it, people see that and they get that. And I was trying to come up with an analogy for it, in that my family, I come from a family of miners. And mines are very, very, dangerous places to work. Mm-hmm. But they used to love working in the mine. They'd go to the mine every single day and they'd work there and they enjoyed working in the mine. And it's because they actually was quite a good safety culture there, because they were all trying their hardest, and there was lots of, ways that they'd gone about trying to increase the safety in the mine. And if you came to our hospital now, it's everywhere. From the distance marking, we developed ways to open the doors without touching them, the way that the ventilation systems have been put up. We've been using nanomaterials to coat everything. We've got people just washing everything all the time. You can see them all over the place. Everyone's checked at the door. Everyone's wearing masks. You can see that everyone is trying their hardest to make it as safe as possible, and it's not sloppy. So I think you can give that reassurance to people, and it is possible to do it, and people can go about and do things in the way they would have done them beforehand. And it's going to be interesting to see how it changes over the next 6 months.
We might have to come to you for some advice on that one, Iain, I think, by the sound of it. Yeah. That'd be really cool. It
has been fascinating, I must admit, how suddenly you look at your place of work in a completely different light. Mm-hmm. You never would have thought that where your building used to work in was dangerous, unless you were a miner or a fisherman or something like that. But as your average hospital goer. But the thing is that if you're a child who has immunosuppression, or you've had cancer, that's just what the world is like. Every time you go out, you could get an infection that could really injure you. And suddenly you look through the world. There's a different lens to look through of infection. And actually, could we have been doing a better job beforehand anyway? Should have been doing this anyway. That's a good point. Yeah,
that's a very good point. Serlina, if I may come to you, please. What does experience-based learning look like for you?
Well, I think I touched on it before in terms of you know, with my daughter, and just making her, and just seeing the growth of her doing, you know, something that I thought looked a certain way, like becoming an editor of a magazine, and just seeing how she's taken that and how she's grown and sort of changed my view of what an editor is. But also as well, my daughter, she is homeschooled, and to get that experience of her coming out of that home environment, you know, I try and do things like we did on Wednesday. We went to an exhibition where they had real dinosaurs, like, you know, pretend dinosaurs that actually came to life, because she's learning about habitats, and it was just amazing for her. And then, you know, her talking about, you know, the difference between different dinosaurs and their teeth, and just her teaching me, you know, a few things. And it's just incredible to see how children learn and how you can learn from them as well. So that's what, you know, I feel it looks like for me, in terms of them just, you know, getting out of the classroom, whether it be at home or at school, and, you know, finding other ways to learn and enjoy that learn as well, and just seeing the growth.
Thank you so much. Kishan, you're very familiar, as the mayor, of course, you're very familiar with the jobs and activities inside KidZania London. What do you think you learned from them?
Well, I learned about some jobs that I didn't know exist, but I liked how you could try them out and see what they involve, see what you have to do for the job. So I've seen almost all the jobs at KidZania, and I've seen also that's what it involves. Like so I know what a job is, but I never knew what you do inside the job. So I knew the basic idea, but I didn't know doing it. So it's taught me about what I may like to do when I'm older in the future. So
experience is everything. Thank you. I'll come back to you on that in a minute, if I may. According to a survey of 1,000 children in 2017, more than 3/4 of children aged 6 to 17 aspire to be YouTubers, vloggers, and bloggers. The research by travel firm First Choice revealed that 34% of children would like to be a YouTube personality, while 1 in 5 wish to start their own channel. Fast forward. According to new research by Kids Insights, there appears, however, to be a seismic shift in children's occupational aspirations over the past few months, with scientists, teachers, supermarket workers, doctors and nurses now the superheroes of the COVID-19 generation. Is this a return to the type of role modeling that is perhaps about to once again change the dynamics of career aspirations and educational priorities? Let's ask the mayor, Kishan. Kishan, what do you want, apart from mayor, what do you want to be when you grow up?
When I grow up, I want to be a pilot. So when I was little, my dad used to take me to like the local airport, and he would show me all the planes taking off and say, this is what type of plane and what airline. So I used to be really interested in that. So also at school, I really like geography. So I thought traveling, geography, planes, pilot is the job that combines all of the things I love. So when I go to KidZania, the pilots BA simulators, so I always go on that, and it teaches me about how it feels to fly a plane. Like I always knew it would be fun and different, but I never actually knew what it would feel like. So when I was little, I used to think you'll find out when you become a pilot how it feels. And then I went to KidZania and I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this without becoming a pilot. And I was so happy, and I do that. That's my favorite job at KidZania.
Have you always wanted to be a pilot? Has that always been your ambition, or have you been influenced by the heroes and key workers throughout COVID as well?
It's always been my ambition, but during COVID lockdown, I've seen how the job isn't just about flying people on holiday. It's about transporting the equipment, the medicine, and when people are stuck in countries on holiday and then the coronavirus before the pandemic happened. So it's about bringing people back home as well. So it's always been my ambition, but COVID has changed my look on it.
Good, that's very interesting. That is very, very, thank you for that. That's very interesting. Iain, everyone now has a responsibility to be a teacher of kind, haven't we?
Yes. I mean, in healthcare, teaching is so important because there's so much to learn that you have to be constantly taught. I mean, I've been studying and doing medicine since 1996, and I'm still having to learn, and I'm still getting taught, and I'm getting taught by my colleagues, and at the same time I'm teaching my more junior colleagues underneath me. You know, in healthcare, it's just part of the job. If you can't teach, it's an enormous disadvantage if you're not able to teach. And actually, you'll find the units that don't teach well, they just wither. Because they don't have, you know, the skill sets coming through.
But even in a role model sense, isn't it? I look at the Alder Hey activity at KidZania London, for example, and I always say to our staff who are the doctors and nurses inside the KidZania Alder Hey, you know, I'll say to them time and time again, when the children come to KidZania, they look up to you because you are the role model. You are Iain Hennessey in disguise, yeah. So I think, yeah, but I think with role modeling and with role models comes responsibility and that teaching angle as well, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, the people that I hold highest are my teachers in healthcare, and one of them just retired. And so this is another fellow Scotsman who's retired, and he taught me when I first arrived at Alder Hey, and that was really something when he left. He's the consultant I wanted to be, and I think a large part of it was just the amount of things which he'd kind of selflessly handed on. And it's one thing I really like about the NHS, because we're not competing with each other for private practice or anything like that. There's a very open element of sharing and mentoring and bringing people up. So yeah, it's super important.
Thank you. Hero, you first, please, but Serlina, the same question after that, if I may. Given all that we've discussed, perhaps the question now, and that's certainly my belief, is we should be asking our children not what do you want to be, but we should ask our children who do you want to become. Because it is not just about the job, is it? It's about the values and the principles with that. Hero, what do you think?
Yeah, so it's not more. So it's definitely more about what they want to become. It's about who they should be as a person, what kind of qualities they have as a person, and therefore, you know, from that they work out what they want to be and what they want to do. And it might actually be almost more important to ask the parents that. I've noticed it myself, where rather than us putting on our children what we think that we might like them to be, you just have to allow them to be who they are and find their own way. So a really sort of a blunt example of this might be when my son, who's 18 today actually, he was choosing his GCSEs, and I said, oh no, you really should do Latin, because, you know, he was really, really good at Latin. I thought it was going to be a no-brainer. Actually, he hated it for the whole time, and I was pushing him down this sort of route that he didn't really want to go down. And my daughter now, who's thinking about her GCSEs, she's just come back. She said, oh, I'm really interested in nutrition, so I'd like to do food tech, and I'd like to do PE, because I like PE. And I think probably the me of 4 years ago might have gone, oh, well, you know, you should probably do another academic subject there. But I've really noticed, I think I've felt the change during this period of just going, you know what, that's going to make you happy. That's what you're interested in. That's going to make you the kind person that we want you to be. And so, you know, you let them go. So I think it's two things. I think children are kind of being very aware of the importance of happiness, but also the parents are very aware of it now. And that, I think, is probably a really important change, because obviously parents put a lot, you know, bring a lot, you know, to bear on their children's choices, don't they?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. Serlina, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I, agree with Hero. I really do believe that we should be asking as well the question to children, who do you want to become? Because even with this lockdown, I know my daughter before that, she wanted to be a dancer, and now she's changed. The other day when her online school teacher said, well, what do you want to be, Faith? And she said, do you know what? I want to work on a farm. One thing that she does do all the time, because she's been seeing me in the garden and her dad planting lots of things, she asks us, Mummy, can we get seeds? Can we get seeds from the store? And her thing is not asking for money or things like that. It's to grow things, So I do think that the environments that you're in, we've had to have this lockdown, and we've had an environment which is a little bit different to what we're normally used to. It's just, again, made her want to look at something else, at becoming something else, and have this sort of passion of growing things. And it's so reading that question, I thought the other day, wow, it is looking at not what, or saying to children, not what do you want to be, but what do you want to become, because it can change, especially if your environment changes as well.
Thank you. I wholeheartedly concur. Who do you want to become? I 5 I put in an article I wrote fairly recently. One was my granddad, always, and the other one was Mr. Burskins, my German teacher. Christian Barnard, the first heart transplant. I wanted to speak like Martin Luther King.
Wow.
And I'm still trying to practice the Cruyff turn, and I still haven't quite managed it. Johan Cruyff, that was it. Rick, as an Evertonian, I dread to think. But who did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, not this year. I'm inspired for what's going on at the club, which is fantastic. And I just wanted to touch back quickly with, we're going to be amazed by the new British Airways activities that we have. We've got brand new consoles, we've got brand new experiences inside. So we're really looking forward to you coming back. But what do I want to be? Well, again, there was inspirational there, but I wanted to be a stuntman. I wanted to be a world explorer and an inventor. But I realized, first of all, as being a stuntman, it hurt. So that didn't happen. I did have the opportunity with certain roles I was doing to explore a lot in the UK. And I could see the different cultural changes and the differences in the different regions. And that really inspired me as well to go and see what the rest of the world had to offer. And regarding the inventor part, well, I'm still only about halfway through my life. So it's all about learning. And I've still got plenty of learning to go through.
Amazing. We're halfway through your life, right? You plan to be 140. Happy 18th birthday to Hero's son as well, please. Clearly, this isn't the end of the debate. It's just the beginning, and there'll be more of these. And I think we all need to accept that every child is everyone's responsibility. We are very much responsible for shaping our children into the type of global citizen of the future that we will have. They will have the skills to be the global citizen, the character, the resilience, and the kindness to adapt and respond to the challenges there are. I'm an optimist. I always think that children will make this world better than we've made it, and so I think there are things to look forward to, and we need to bottle their resilience and that magical ability to adapt and find positives in everything, and we could all do with a nip of that bottled resilience, could we, at the moment. Ultimately, children will always be able to teach us a thing or two about humanity and citizenship. And that we have to remind ourselves of that silver lining continuously. And then, as my very good friend Carlo Rinaldi always says, we must trust the children as much as they trust us. Thank you for being with us. It's been a delight. I hope to see you all again soon. And bye for now.